93. This is Amun Asha Renew from asharenew.com. Today I want to speak on why and how astrology influences our lives. The first thing we must understand is that the stars influence our psyche. So the first thing to understand about astrology is its influence is indirect. So the stars do not directly affect us in terms of compelling you to do something you otherwise would not do. Instead, it influences the psyche. And the difference between the stars influencing your psyche or compelling you to do certain acts is free will. Astrology or the stars do not take away our ability to act freely. So although the stars are influencing us, they do not take away free will. They simply give us themes and events that correspond, that allow us to understand the influence that they have. This is why every planet has certain characteristics. And once you understand the characteristics of the planets, you can recognize those characteristics in other things, earthly things, including people. Which is why, depending on your zodiac sign, that will influence your personality. Not just the personality, also your appearance. Not just your appearance, but also the way you interact with your environment as a whole. All this is based upon your star influence, in particular your ascendant, which is different than your sun sign. Most people may be familiar with their sun sign, but your sun sign is not your personality. Your personality instead comes from your ascendant. Your ascendant is determined by what time you were born, because the ascendant changes every 2 hours. So for example, there are many people born on the same day. So they will have the same sun sign. However, what makes them different is their ascendant. So in the course of 24 hours, because the ascendant changes every 2 hours, that is 12 changes, which corresponds to the 12 zodiac signs. So although everyone born on the same day will have the same sun sign, what makes these people different, and of course, the other planets have a part to play, but the main part, if we're talking about the main trinity, which is your ascendant, your sun, and your moon, it is your ascendant that changes every 2 hours, because the sun sign changes once every day, or 1 degree per day. So the sun sign changes every 30 days. The moon changes every 2 hours. 1 degree per 2 hours. The sun is 1 degree per 24 hours. And the ascendant is changing every 2 hours. So once we combine all of these influences, the influence of your sun sign, the influence of your ascendant, the influence of your moon sign, once we look at this trinity, then we get a better understanding as to who a person is. Because you can know a person's sun sign, but that's not going to tell you how they react to things, which you learn by studying the moon sign. And it's not going to tell you about their personality, which you learn from studying the ascendant. So once again, the reason that the stars have an influence on us in the first place is because we are composed of star dust. The remains of the stars eventually becomes our bodies, our earthly vessels. It is because of the carbon that comes from the stars that we are arranged and born and manifested through this carbon. This is why the stars have an influence on us, is because we are stars. And because we are stars, we have a relationship with the stars. So we have the stars above, and we also have the stars below, which are the people, places, and things. So this also includes animals and anything that can be born, anything that can have a personality. The reason why astrology is considered pseudoscience in the current reality is due to the materialistic view of science. In other words, if it does not follow the scientific method, then it cannot be scientific according to the religion of science, because it is no different than a religion at this point. When anything new comes up, it gets dismantled or it gets shunned. Anything that allows us to go beyond what has been created or what has been deemed important is pushed to the side. So it is a purposeful, conscious decision to keep us away from these sacred arts. So they're going to tell you that you are making deals with the devil, that you're working with demons, and so on and so forth, to gain these abilities to be able to predict your own future and the future of others. This is an ability you're not supposed to have, according to the religion of science or the religions that are mainstream. Anything that promotes you to learn about yourself is forbidden, because you are made to serve according to religion. So religion is against you becoming a greater individual. It is more about you falling in line. Because if you do not know yourself, you will fall in line. The only way for you to get out of line and forge your own destiny, which is harder to do, So I'm not saying this like this is the thing to do, because this is the harder path. When you choose to not be governed, because you are self-governed, that means you're taking the harder route. You choose to have faith in the unseen, but not just the unseen in terms of spirit, rather, but the unseen in terms of the stars, because the stars are mathematical. This is the difference between astrology or any other type of spirituality, which is not based on mathematics. Because astrology is based on mathematics, this is what makes it more real than any other spiritual science, which is not based on mathematics. So the same goes for numerology, which is based in mathematics. The same goes for the tarot, which is based in mathematics, because it's zodiac signs and planets in their various combinations. All of these occult sciences that has been discussed on this channel, I am not responsible for anyone else's opinion, only for what I have brought forth, which is all based upon mathematics. And because it is based upon mathematics, you may not be able to measure it with a device. You may not be able to replicate the results. And this is why the main thing that keeps astrology out of the mainstream is because you cannot duplicate the results. So for example, if the sun is in Capricorn, let's just say Capricorn in the year 2021, following the scientific method, when the sun goes into Capricorn in 2022, we should see the same results. However, we do not see the same results. So although we go through the same days, the 1st all the way to the 31st, or the 30th, or the 28th, depending on the month, we're going through these same chambers via numbers, via mathematics. But why do we get different results? This takes us into chaos theory. This takes us into the butterfly effect, because chaos theory lets us know that you can start at the same position, and let's just say you throw a ball or you throw a rock from the same position and you're trying to throw the rock over the pond. Every time you throw that rock, it's going to end up at a different destination. You're not going to be able to throw the rock and it ends up at the same place over and over again. Astrology works the same way, because although astrology is mathematical, although those planets are going through those same 30 degrees of the zodiac every month and year after year after year, we have these cycles that have been established. The smaller cycles all the way up to the greater cycles. But we still have an element of chaos. Why? Because astrology or the stars affect our psyche. And when it affects our psyche, that means the results are subjective. And because the results are subjective, you may not necessarily be able to point your finger outside of yourself and be able to prove the effects that the planets are having upon you personally. So because astrology is more subjective, because it is astronomy, that is objective. Astronomy shows us the objective reality of the planets and the stars. But if we want to know about the internal nature about the planets and stars, we have to study astrology. And because these results are subjective, because they affect your psyche, this is the reason why you cannot necessarily prove it outside of your own subjective experience. That's why we have people who believe and then people who don't, because it is truly subjective. And it is based upon chaos theory. So you can have two people who are into the arts and still have two different experiences because there are two different psyches within those two people. And depending upon your star blueprint or your natal chart, which is different for everyone, that determines how the stars affect you when they do affect you. That's another reason why the results are different for everyone, even though it may be within the same theme. So going back to the example, the sun in Capricorn is a theme that manifests differently for everyone based on their personal natal chart.